'Cause I'm TNT. I'm dynamite. TNT. And I'll win that fight. TNT. I'm a power load. TNT. Watch me explode.
Hello, lucky person. You got the number right, cause you are talking to Kid a Dynamite! 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 Pure dynamite! Dynamite! They so sexy they almost turned me on.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Light the Fuse with myself here, Mathew Shaffer. You're a host of the most who lives on the West Coast, your boy, MSG. Of course, I am joined each and every week by my co-host now, the Sucio, the great Silvio himself, coming fresh right off AEW Dynamite tonight as we record this to you. No Ben Hamin. Ben Hamin is hanging out with his many 500 wives, so he is preoccupied. So me and Silvio here are going to give you the AEW Dynamite breakdown, as well as on the second half, do some MLW review, as well as Matt's Mind Meltz makes a return. I'm going to rant a little bit on some space tech news, me disliking The Bachelor show because I work for a local affiliate and we're really advertising the heck out of this Bachelor show. And The Circle, which is a Netflix series. Kind of want to get into the social experiment side of it and talk about if this is something that we could be heading toward. But we're here to talk about Dynamite with Mr. Silvio here, as he's the main event to start us off here. AEW Dynamite results. Before we get into it, though, just to note, last week they had 963,000 viewers. Tonight's key competition was just NXT and Tucker Carlson. So tonight for wrestling, there was no sports on the air. Really no excuses. There was no BET entertainment as far as Real Housewives or Bachelor Wives or Basketball Wives. There was none of that. It was wrestling. What did you think of how AEW Dynamite opened up tonight, sir?
The boys are back in town one more time. Silvio, my homeboy MSG, talking about Light the Fuse. Fuse. And man, it was so hot. I'm practically still dripping with sweat from tonight's AEW Dynamite. And a lot of that comes from me being a little perplexed. But we'll get into all that. I'm ready to rock. I'm feeling good. It's 11 p.m. on the East Coast. It's time to party, baby. Let's do this.
Well, Mr. Silvio's got his freshly squeezed orange juice in his cup. And tonight's AEW started off, well, I guess it's worth noting that tonight's, I guess, overall theme that they tried to present was the legends of Memphis, even though they were in Mississippi. A little interesting. Is that something that you would do, Silvio, market, as far as having legends in a different Southern territory or state based upon, maybe their history, or was it questionable itself because it really didn't make sense?
Here's the only thing I can assume is that Mississippi was part of the Memphis territory. Like, for instance, when Lawler and Jarrett were the Kings of Memphis, they would come to Louisville at the Louisville Gardens every Tuesday night. And that's about a 5-6 hour drive from Memphis. So maybe there was a point in time where Mississippi didn't have its own TV. I can't really remember any major territories out of Mississippi. So likely they got the Memphis TV. So that's probably where that is.
Interesting that we talk about the South here of the last 2 days. As I was talking with Ben on the Impact Attack, I was saying, why don't they have a hot wrestling territory in Arkansas?
Not a chance.
Not a chance. Okay, well, maybe something we could do something down the line. That'd be interesting. Get a bludgeoning company there. I'm kidding. So AEW Dynamite, they bring out all the legends. As far as throughout, with Dave Brown joined by Jim Ross and Excalibur and Tony Schiavone. But tonight's match starts off with Hangman Page and Kenny Omega taking on Private Party. I thought overall this was a good match itself. I liked seeing Hangman Page and Pac get the victory, and I liked that the conclusion itself with them finally at least giving us a more up-to-date recap on what's going on with Michael Nakazawa and the whole him getting attacked about a month ago. So they kind of circled back to that again, that Pac is still attacking him in an effort to invoke rage within Kenny Omega to try to instigate him to come, face him once more in the ring. What did you think of this overall match? Was there anything that, some positives or anything negative you took away?
Well, if you recall on this fine program last week, I specifically asked AEW to give us brothers an update. What's up with Nakazawa? How is he? How was his Christmas? By the looks of things, he had a shitty holiday season. Unfortunately, I missed the first 10 minutes of the show. I tuned in about 9:10. So I only saw the back end of the match. But what did they do? You said you referenced the legends. What did they do? Did they do some kind of package at the video at the beginning? Did they parade them out? What happened?
They were all out in the ring. Like, I don't know if maybe I missed it as well, because I missed the first 3 minutes. But from at some point throughout the night, they did kind of pan to a video with them all in the ring. So
Okay.
they had a bunch of legends from Memphis all in the ring
So
itself.
they paraded them out.
Yeah, they paraded them out. But the match itself, so I guess that first part of the match, they started out, Quentin and Page started out with kind of dominating the match, and then the tide turned, and then eventually Kenny Omega and Pac took over, and they picked up the victory. So I mean, as far as from a tag team standpoint, I think it's interesting that the Elite has kind of been broken down into tag teams now, right? Because you got Kenny and Hangman, and then you've got Cody and Dustin, and then you've got the Young Bucks. They're kind of all separately kind of going their own adjacent ways, where eventually I think they're all going to collide in a tag team. I don't know, for the tag team championship. At least for my perspective, I think that's the only thing you kind of really can do with Cody right now, other than the MJF stuff, because he can't, vie for the main title, right?
Yeah, and I kind of got that vibe watching tonight. Maybe that's where they're going. Dustin and Cody take a run at those tag straps, which would be pretty cool to see. As far as the match, Page and Omega were working great together. I know they're leading towards probably turning Adam Page and distancing himself from the Elite, but they were on point. I caught the back end of that match, and all their stuff together was really tight. Everything was crisp. They looked real good. I did have a few things with Private Party. I learned tonight that Mark Quinn's actually a first and last name. I always thought it was Mark Quinn, one word,
okay.
Like Malcolm, for instance.
Right.
But I found out it was Mark space Quinn. But aside from that, Private Party, man, they can do such cool shit. I really like their finish. I like their act, their energy. But this goes back to what Hamin and I were talking about last week, and has been making the rounds on our video snippet. Some of the stuff that they do for their tag moves are so dancey choreographed that it doesn't look like it really hurts, and you can really just see through it how much everybody is cooperating, and their strikes as well. At some point, Mark Quinn was throwing a bunch of flipper forearms, and they didn't look like they were hurting anyone. And Brother in the Ring is selling it. This is something that I've noticed being part of the wrestling scene and traveling all over. Let's just take the last 10 years, for instance. The wrestling punch or the working punch is art that's getting lost. Most wrestlers now are doing forearms and they don't even remember how to punch. Just think about the ridiculousness of this, Matt. Let's say you and I are at a bar, and I come over and I slap the drink out of your girlfriend's hand. And I say, "What, bitch? Are you going to run up to me and flipper forearm me? No, you're going to fucking throw a punch and knock me on my ass." So it's not just Mark Quinn, but I've noticed a lot of people in AEW and other places, independents everywhere, really don't throw the greatest punches. So for my critiques of them in that match, I would be tighten up your offense a little bit more, because it looks like Dancing with the Stars. I love the payoff of the move, but I don't like the dance that we took to get there. And we got to step those strikes up. And that's for a lot of people across the board, man. I'm seeing a lot of weak punches, and it shines through. Nobody wants to be reminded that they're not really hitting each other. That's the art of pro wrestling, is that we suspend our disbelief, right? We're watching and we're like, oh shit, I think he might have caught him on that one. That's money. You don't want to. It's like the light falls in the middle of a movie shoot and they keep rolling the camera. That's the kind of shit that we don't want to keep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's interesting you were talking about the punches because as of today, you know, I'm on my day off here. I'm hanging out. I'm cruising YouTube. I watched a thing on Scott Hall today, and I'm just watching his punches. And you're just like, God damn, Scott Hall knew how to throw a punch because it was just so, you know, on the mark that when you're watching the match, you could suspend yourself enough to think that, oh, did he actually connect on that? I mean, it looks like he connected. You know what I mean? So, and he was so good as far as winding up and taking the crowd on that ride with him. Oh, here comes that punch that, you know, when it got the crowd excited. Today, it definitely looks a little bit more childish. And it's not just AEW. I've seen other matches itself where they're, you know, slapping guys across the chest right over and over. And you're kind of like, oh, that's a little hokey. Like I watched Impact last night, and there was a couple spots in one of the matches there where he was just slapping him over the chest over and over. But it was just so fake. It looked so fake. It looked like it was just two dudes like play fighting. You know what I mean? And I think that's a lost art, you know, as far as being able to portray something realistically to where you are actually psychologically, motivated to fall within the storyline. Like when I watch Arrow, you know, Stephen Amell, I'm captivated by that storyline. He can do his choreographed fight scene, but the way it's shot and how it's presented with the story and it's believable, you know, the camera angles they use, wrestling doesn't have that, you know, they don't get to have those tricks. So they've got to be, you know, on point with what they're delivering to the audience.
Dude, especially when you're on live TV.
Yeah.
You know, think about how many retakes Mel can do if he doesn't throw a stage punch correctly. These guys are live. But yeah, I think every pro wrestler needs a damn good work punch. Just for the example I gave you earlier, if two men or two women are going to confront each other, they're punching. They're not throwing elbows. They're not throwing forearms. Good news is you can contact Chris Silvio's Superstar Seminars on Facebook, and I can teach you the art of the work punch. Actually, I had a pretty sweet webinar yesterday with myself and Matt Seidel where we went over this exact issue. And you can still actually purchase and watch the replay of that webinar and learn how to throw a world-class working punch.
You should definitely do that, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, you can also contact Mr. Silvio if you want him to come to a town near you and train punch you and train your wrestlers on how to punch as well. So we saw Hangman Page, you know, he encourages Kenny Omega to, you know, go after Pac. So he heads up the ramp to go after Pac. Hangman joins the audience while they're in a commercial break. I don't know if you saw this. He's, you know, drinking a couple beers with the fans and stuff like that. I thought that was kind of, you know, funny, you know, but it was just kind of, I don't know if they've really explained it too much yet on the Dynamite product, and we've talked about this last week, but that's the character he's portraying right now.
Well, like the deal that he's a drunk now.
Yeah. He's got a drinking problem. That's what he's portraying right now, which was so weird because I watched a YouTube video and they talked about Scott Hall's drinking problems as well and the WCW storyline that he portrayed in. So I just was like, man, wrestling always repeats itself, right?
So awful, dude. So awful. And if you remember the thing too, I think Bruce Pritchard did in his podcast when they had the Steve Austin, Scott Hall thing, when they brought the NWO back to WWE. And they had a scene where Austin had Scott Hall tied up to a chair and was pouring alcohol on him. And Scott Hall was recovering alcoholic. So he took whatever that medicine is that makes you puke when alcohol hits your system. So he's got like his mouth taped shut. Austin's pouring booze all over him and had to be the worst experience of his fucking life. But yeah, evidently Paige is doing a drunk gimmick now. I don't watch BTE, so I didn't know until you pointed it out.
Well, yeah, that's unfortunate. They definitely should be showing that. I mean, they should be showing that some more, right? I mean, it shouldn't, as you guys mentioned it shouldn't be the viewer's job to do additional homework and seek out, you know, that side of the storyline. It should be presented. So after that, went to a break, come back. The announcers discussed the rest of the card. Brandy Rhodes comes out on commentary. Excalibur asks her what her interest is, you know, in the upcoming title match. Brandy said she wasn't interested, that she's only there because she wasn't invited. So the next match was Chris Statlander taking on Riho for the AEW Women's Championship match. You know, there was some good spots, I thought, in this match. I thought Statlander had a really cool stalling suplex that she hit on Riho from the second turnbuckle ring rope there. But it wasn't really good, this whole segment with everything with I'm laughing here because Silvio's shaking his head with everything with the Nightmare Collective stuff. The match was okay. Had the backdrop of the Nightmare Collective stuff felt like a miss, I'd say, with the crowd. I give them credit for trying to attempt something in the AEW women's division. They're trying something. There's been a lot of criticism that AEW hasn't been doing anything with them. So at least they're trying to set up an antagonist. The execution maybe was a miss. Mr. Silvio?
This is where the perplexing begins. I love AEW. I've supported them since day one. And I really don't want to have to come on here and scold them like someone's grandpa or lay the law down, but I got to speak the truth. So I'm going to start from the top. And I'm sorry. I think you're an awesome person, good woman, good character. It was weird from the jump when Brandy came up to the table as a heel. Brandy doesn't strike me as a heel. Her husband's the biggest babyface in the company. They do all these behind-the-scenes videos of them giving the fan experience to all these people. There's no heel about Brandy. You could tell she was acting like a heel, okay? Then we'll get to the match itself. Chris Statlander is money. I've been saying this for weeks. Awesome act, awesome build, good moves, stuff like that. Rio's a smaller competitor, but she's been doing her best with it. I think these two could have had a really nice wrestling match, but instead what we got was all these weird ass smoke and mirrors. So for me, the most troubling part of this match, and I might need your help remembering these details because my brain was so fried. We did see that really cool stalling suplex, but something happened to where the who's the bald one's name that got her hair shaved? What are they calling her now? Formerly Melanie Cruz, I think.
Yeah. I have it as down as Mel Cruz came down to the ringside.
Yeah, so
they're calling her Lee, maybe, or something. Maybe I think, or something like that. Lee.
Whatever. The audience knows who the fuck we're talking about. He pulls Rhea out of the ring, throws her into something. Then there was just this weird thing where I believe it was Kong and her who were coming down the ramp, and then Stat went outside the ring to like look at them, and then some creepy guy came up from underneath the ring with like an eye on his head, and I think they said he was Luther. The only sense I can make of that is I think I recall from reading Jericho's book, he trained with a Dr. Luther who ended up being a deathmatch guy in Japan. So maybe there's a connection there that he hooked up her brother with one of the jobs. But it was weird as all fucking fuck. And I don't know why they couldn't just let those two go in and have a match without everyone in the world having to be out there. You had Brandy, you had Kong, you had this weird man who's out there for no reason. And then the finish itself, Stat's going for a tombstone. There's the old recreation of the Bobby Heenan spot with Rude and Ultimate Warrior. Going for the back suplex. He pulls the foot, holds the leg down, 1, 2, 3. But this one was just so weird the way it was done out of a tombstone position. Rio kind of got the cover. It really didn't do any favors for Chris Statlander at all, who they're trying to push. And it was just weird. And also, what happened to her eye? Last time we saw her, she got busted in the eye with a spike of a fucking Louis Vuitton. What happened to her eye? Why isn't there a patch on it? I was so angry because I'm getting fucking hot right now. I'm talking about it. I'm throwing my notes. I literally just threw my notes across the fucking room because I have such high hopes for this girl. If I ran a big level promotion, she would be at the top. One of my champions, 1A or 1B. And Rio is good too. She's not necessarily my cup of tea, but she's good. She can work. These girls could have had a great match and you could have figured out a way to throw the storyline all together. But instead, we got some fucking nonsense with bald girls throwing people into rails, a fucking guy into the ring with an eye on his forehead, no selling, getting your eye fucking poked out, and it's perplexing.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, they come down and yes, it was the Japanese deathmatch legend Luther, which I would like to give credit where credit's due to Mr. William Alessia, who runs our Hamin Media News, Rumors, Groups, Information News. He broke this information like 2 months ago and said that Dr. Luther was coming to AEW. So once again, William Alessia on the ball. So basically the match, as you pointed out, mentioned with Riho getting a roll up, right? Picking up the victory.
And cheating, essentially, by the way.
Right. Right. I mean, because Kong and them kind of got involved. They wanted Rio to win. And then after the match, they eviscerated them. Right. You know, the Nightmare Collective took aim. And then the rest of the women's division that was sitting there, or not the rest, but you had, what was it? Britt Baker was in the crowd. And then you had Big Swole, Sunny Kiss, but they only, what was it? Sheeta jumped the rail and makes the save. And then Sheeta, now that sets up next week. It's going to be Sheeta and Statlander taking on the Nightmare Collective. So I give them credit for at least trying to like build something within the AEW women's division, but the execution itself was definitely missed.
Okay,
sure.
and let's not gloss over this. And maybe you can answer this question because you pay close attention to this stuff. So when they were doing all of that stuff with these people running out everywhere, people getting thrown around on the floor, where was the referee? I was watching this, and at some point I said to myself, has the match been thrown out? Did they DQ it or something? Because a fucking minute legitimately probably passed by, way more than the 10 count or the 20 count, whichever one's legal at AEW currently. And then after all of these shenanigans, the ref kind of just gets back in the ring and the match starts happening. Like, where was he? Was he selling anything? Was his head up his ass? Was he under the ring? It was so fucking mind-boggling. And this is from a product that I loved and I want to see succeed. I want to help, but it just blew my mind. I don't know. Where was the ref? Did you see it?
No, and I questioned that as well. I thought the match was over when Dr. Luther got involved. I thought that was it. That was the disqualification. Like he got in. They're all fighting on the outside. Kong is now involved. Randy's directing traffic. I thought that was the end of the match, but I didn't hear a bell. And then you're right. They kind of just get back in the ring and kind of go right back to wrestling.
Yeah.
So I know they point out the fact that the referees have their own rules, right? That they have their own discretion, and they've been criticized for it. They have been criticized. That's been a criticism of AEW, is the fact that the referees have their own discretion. But maybe it's because this was for the AEW Women's Championship that there was a no DQ in effect.
That's
the only.
That's not advertised. No, there's nobody that said that. That's not a rule. If it was a rule, I'd be okay with that. But we'll talk. It perplexed me, but I'm going to say some good things now because I'm a good human being. Even though Christmas is over, I'm still in the giving spirit. I'm still a big fan of Chris Stat, despite the last two things I've seen her involved in. They did one really cool spot where she went for a press slam, girl strong as hell, and Rio countered that into like a crucifix bomb. Yeah. That looked really good. They had a few nice near falls. Basically, most of the wrestling I enjoyed. What just upset me more than all the smoke and mirrors was just the fact that I know how good of a match those two could have had. If you gave them 12 minutes on TV to just go out there and wrestle, and maybe you only took 45 seconds for all the business at the end with Dr. Luther and everything, we could have gotten a great match out of it. They could have gotten their business over and everyone would have been happy. But it was like, you remember that match, the Sting versus Triple H match at Mania where DX came out and NWO came out?
Yes.
And it was just like this weird clusterfuck of things happening. That was kind of the vibe I got from this. They were treating it almost as if these two couldn't have a match together without all of this other stuff. And right. I don't know, maybe we should roll on before I dig any deeper into it. But I want to see better. Chris Stat deserves better. They can do better. I've seen them do better. That was a miss, and I really hope they correct it.
Yeah, so I agreed. We can definitely go to the next matchup here. That was Sammy Guevara taking on Christopher Daniels. They didn't really get a lot of time, I'd say, from like a length of point for the match, right? This was kind of short. The match wasn't necessarily the focal point of this. It was more about the angle that preceded it. But I liked what I saw from Sammy Guevara and Daniels. I thought they were working really well within the match with each other. Guevara hit a Samoan drop. He misses a 450, and Daniels hits an exploder. Daniels called for the Angels wing, and then Guevara blocked it with a running knee and used a standing shooting star for a 2 count, which was a cool move. And then at some point in the match, there was Pentagon Jr. makes his first appearance. He comes out, and it's right in the point where Daniels is going for the BME, and it's kind of egging him on. Go ahead, do it. Daniels reluctantly doesn't do it, and then Guevara ends up taking advantage of the distraction and picks up the victory. Afterwards, we see the Dark Order make their way down. We kind of get some backstory apparently here that the Order of the Dark Order himself, Oos, has a history with Daniels, stemming 15, 20 years within the business, and basically offers his hand to join the Dark Order. This breaks down, so we get another fighting fest here as Daniels declines, opts to stay with SCU. SCU, the Young Bucks come down, everyone's come down. It breaks into a free-for-all. What do you think of all of this?
Okay, I've got some opinions to share on that. One thing I thought was funny before that match, I had this on my notes, it just jumped out at me. On the segment prior to this with the whole Kong, Chris Statlander debacle, at one point when Dr. Luther came out, Tony Schiavone said something to the likes of, you remember we saw him on the video 3 months ago. It reminded me of WCW, like when Tony would try to save whatever the nonsense that they were selling that week in like WCW 2000, and Tony was trying to troubleshoot it. Like I could see him in the moment doing that. Did you catch that?
No, I didn't catch that actually.
Yeah, it was something. But no, as far as Daniels and Sammy, I'm a big fan of Sammy. He's getting better every week. I like how he came out on the graphic. It said something like he beat Dustin Rhodes and Spanish God. Really, really good. Here's some of the good stuff I'll say about Sammy. He's really learning how to work as a true heel. And I think working with Jericho has really been rubbing off on him. There was one spot in particular where he did the old spot. I've done it a million times. It's great where the heel's backed off in the corner. The referee comes in. You pull the referee in between you and your opponent. Then when he gets out of the way, you sneak the shot.
Yeah.
So Sammy did a really good job of doing stuff like that. Next time, if he really wants to get the most of it, you tell the referee to crouch a little lower so their head's around your waist as if they're trying to spear you, holding you back, and then you punch over top of their head so they can't see it. But that's just a small detail. I like that Sammy was doing shit like that. I like that he was cheating before he did whatever his cool move. Any like heel wrestlers out there listening, if you're athletic, that's a great way to do it. Cheat or have the babyface slip on the proverbial banana peel, fuck themselves up. Then you can get your cool move in, and they're not going to cheer for you. By Sammy cheating first, it took away the cheers of any moves that were going to happen. So I thought he did a real good job on that. Daniels is the man. He's been the man for forever. But Sammy's really been impressing me a lot lately. The finish, man, I wasn't a fan of the finish.
Yeah,
because
the finish was a little weird.
It was one and the same. We just saw something the match before.
Yeah.
Just like that. And then later we're going to bookend it with something else eerily similar. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. It was just Guevara hitting a kick to the back of the head. So, granted, the argument can be made that, he got him with an out of nowhere strike, which is kind of cool to pick up a victory like that. But at the same time, I don't know, just kicking somebody, if I'm to believe in the world of AEW where super kicks, don't beat people in pinfall victories and it can take 2 to 3 finishers, how is a simple kick to the back of a veteran like Christopher Daniels going to take him out? So that was what I thought was what was a little weird. And again, it was another, and this is what AEW has kind of been synonymous with doing, is all these, the victory can just come out of nowhere. Right. And that there's nothing wrong with that, but there's also nothing wrong with, you can choreograph the match to the point where I can believe, here comes the finish. Oh, he got it. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that too.
Yeah, what we missed there is they did a really cool pin exchange on the back end of that match. For those not familiar with the terminology of that, this is the last part of the match. We call it the back end. They did a lot of real cool pins and reversals and stuff like that. Nice double clothesline. I could see that's the influence of Christopher Daniels, a veteran. Just like we were talking about last week, once you give them the bang, bang, bang cool shit, you have to drop and let it settle so everyone's ready for it. So I think they did a good job of this. But when it started getting a little fucky was Pentagon coming out. Like,
Right.
I'm still not 100% sure why he came out and why Daniel's a veteran of 30 years took his eyes off of his opponent long enough to have this interaction. It wasn't like he was in a threat. Penta wasn't like in his face or anything where he had to defend himself. It kind of really didn't do Daniels any favors. And then Sammy finished him off with the kick. Kick looked fine, but it's AEW. You have people doing package pile driver double stomps. Good for Sammy, brother's getting over. But I don't know how good that made Daniels look.
Yeah, it was a little weird, but I think it ultimately was. And was it confusing to the fact that like you literally watched Pentagon Jr. come out and try to bring up this old rivalry that's been going on between the Lucha Bros and SU, while simultaneously the Dark Order is now, inflicting more damage into this. I don't know. It was kind of just a mosh posh of different like storylines all coming kind of together, or I don't know. That was what was confusing. Now the Young Buck stuff I get that because they've been kind of going back with the Dark Order or whatnot, but like it just didn't really make sense to me that Daniels was the one that was in that position.
Is that a new word you just made up? I think you just said mosh posh. Is that like a new word for like the Fuse podcast? Go back. Oh, by the way, you were popping the shit out of me, dude, when I was listening last time. Between you and Hamin butchering the name Statlander, I think you guys collectively called her about 27 different things.
Chris Stratlander.
Stratlander, Strat Handler, Step Finder. It's Statlander.
Statlander.
Yeah. But yeah, Penta came out. It was a little awkward, and then Sammy goes over with that kick. Then the Dark Order comes out, trying to recruit Daniels. A couple of those guys, they didn't take our advice. They still have the Dick's Sporting Goods tops. Thankfully, it wasn't as many of them. Then you had those two, the rookie tag team that were out there with them. I think this was okay. Like, Evil Uno's a good promo. I think he did it. He did it pretty good. Daniel's saying no, getting beat up. I don't really have any problems with that at all. Like, I know a lot of fans have been critical about the Dark Order, and we've given our honest opinion. But I didn't really see much problem with that. If I could critique anything, would be the time when Stu Grayson got in the ring and counted like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then went in to fight all of them. Unless he's playing like a psychotic character, that's not what a heel would do. That's what a babyface would do. A babyface would say, fuck it, it's me against the world, Bruce Lee style in Return of the Dragon, Enter the Dragon, just whipping everyone's ass. But it's not really a heel move. And they gave him some shots, but he wasn't selling them. And then the boys pulled him out to the floor. So that was kind of a little questionable call. I'm not quite sure why Stu didn't sell for anyone or why he wanted to look like an indestructible monster in that. This night is just going to be plagued with a lot of just weirdness. I sent you a text when the show was over, and I said, is it just me or was tonight's episode weird? Maybe I wasn't in the mood to watch wrestling. I've been doing a bunch of shit today. My fucking brain is half dead. I got to deal with concussion issues and doctor's appointments. But that was just kind of the vibe I got today, was weirdness. And this segment was really no different. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. The whole overarching show, it's as far as the different factions, that's what AEW is kind of, I think, trying to establish right now, is all these different factions, whether it be with MJF and the Wardlow and the Blade and the Butcher, and you got the Dark Order stuff going on. You've got the Rhodes Brothers, you've got Lucha Brothers, so there's a lot of tag teams and actions. That seems to be what they're trying to establish, but there just was a lot of like mistimings or weird like spots or just weird placements of certain things. So I agree, it was just a little weird, and it's also I know maybe they had other things going on. Maybe they're all they weren't as focused as far as on certain aspects of what they needed to do to accomplish tonight, and it happens, right? Sometimes you just have a miss, when it comes to the show.
Anyone.
Yeah.
And it's pretty funny because I know Ben Hamin likes this stuff when he listens to the show back tomorrow. At some point, JR just trying to save it and give himself some kind of credibility. He had a line that I wrote it down. It was something like, there sure are a lot of offers being given around here these days. So,
Yes. Yeah.
he had to
Exactly.
acknowledge it, or he wouldn't be JR, and that line just kind of popped me.
So after that, we get another tag team matchup here. We get Cody and Dustin versus the Lucha
Yes.
Bros. This was a really good match. It starts off with Cody and Pentagon Jr. They go back and forth taunting. Cody hits a drop down right hand. Dustin comes back, tags in. They do a couple spots back and forth. But this match went, I think, a good 12, 15 minutes. It ends with Dustin getting a tag in, hitting a power slam to Penta. Then he takes a destroyer on the Phoenix. Cody hits Cody cutter to Penta, and then Dustin hit the final reckoning for the pin. So overall, the Rhodes Brothers looked strong in this match. I was a little surprised that they just got a 100% clean victory, especially considering Penta has come out so much with the Daniels matches now. I get what you were saying, that as the baby face, right, you wouldn't just come out and start attacking people. But at the same time, I think it would make sense in this match, right? Penta came out and interfered in Daniels. Why didn't Daniels come out with the mic himself and interfere in this match? There's just no,
Valid point.
connectivity there with those two storylines. It's something they've been doing since the opening, the inauguration show in October, when Penta interfered in the first match there with Daniels and he took him out. So they haven't really had Daniels itself try to at least get one back over on Penta. I'm sorry to just go off on a diatribe there. It's just something that's been bothering me about that.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. They could have bookended that story. Again, something that we brought up last week, and I think maybe the brass up there has been listening to the hottest AEW recap show in the world today, like that motherfucking fuse. I like the way they dressed Arn up this week. I was much more pleased. He fit more. He had on white pants, a white shirt. He had the coach's vest. I love how he does the mumble gimmick like this, where he's calling plays. By the way, those are my notes for the show. That's how I do this. I'm old school. But I like how he was doing that. The presentation was better. That notebook actually reminds me. It's a little bit off topic, but I'm going to tell you a little Jim Cornette story that I think you'll appreciate. Jim Cornette refuses to use most modern technology. His wife finally taught him how to use Twitter, and he started doing that about a year ago. So when I worked for Cornette in both OVW...
Boy, does he know how to use Twitter now, doesn't he?
He sure does. When I worked for him in both OVW and Ring of Honor, Cornette would write all the notes, all the segments, all the promos on yellow legal pad. And he would, in script, he writes in cursive. And he would then go and Xerox the copies and hand them off to you individually. So if he had some business for my promo, Cornette would would give me a piece of paper in his writing, Xerox from the legal pad, saying, I want you to say this or sort that. I remember one day in particular getting a promo, and it was something that only Jim Cornette would say, and it's not a Chris Silvio line at all. It would be like you saying something on the show and me responding with, oh, shucks, Matt. It's just something I would never say. The line was, I would walk through hell with gasoline britches to get to you, telling somebody that I would do whatever to fight him. And I remember being like, Jimmy, I don't say britches. It's not, I'm 25 years old. People just don't really say britches. But I lost that battle. It wasn't my hill to die on. So if you go back and watch an episode, I can't remember if it was ROH or OVW, but watch an episode around 2011, you'll hear Chris Silvio using the word britches. But yeah, back to Arn. He was back as a coach. I thought he looked good in the role. What do you think of Arn the coach this week?
I liked it. He didn't. I don't think tonight at all Arn Anderson shit his britches, which is a reference to South Park. Suck My Balls. Check out my podcast there on Voices of Misery and Hamin Media Group. But I thought Arn Anderson looked good. He wasn't as involved, I'd say, as far as making that final decision for the victory, other than pulling Cody out of the ring, right? Making sure kind of Cody got out of the way and avoiding taking any damage there at the end. Dustin getting the victory, of course, looking great as he always does. I mean, he's just so good in the ring. Everything Dustin does, it's just so crisp. And no matter what, I can sit down and watch his match, no matter what he's doing, and just be sucked right in. It takes me back to being a child, maybe a little bit too, just because I've been watching him for so long. So I have a better appreciation and respect for his in-ring work. But, I think that's overall something that, I hope that he can pass on to the other AEW competitors there, something maybe they're working on to try and expand their knowledge when they're in the ring. And overall, we saw Cody and Dustin getting the victory. We kind of talked about this at the beginning. It looks like they're going to be pushing towards that in the tag team division. Do you eventually see them becoming the tag team champions?
I think it's possible. And we glossed over one piece of business with Arn. We did have that segment where Phoenix, I think, grabbed a chair and you had Arn take the chair away. So we did give him a little bit more usage there.
That's true.
But I want to talk about Dustin Rhodes again, man. As fired up as I was about the girls segment, again, Dustin Rhodes fired me up in a good way today. He is so fucking good. And I'm going to tell you why Dustin Rhodes is so much better than a lot of these younger athletes that can do twice as much physically. About 15 minutes ago in the show, I complained about Private Party doing a dance number. Okay. So if you watch this match back, Dustin was doing the new age spots with the 20 reversals, the ducks, everything else, but he did it in such a manner that you couldn't anticipate what was happening. When it's done the wrong way and it's the Dancing with the Stars thing, you could see how all the tricks work. You could see how the guy really didn't have the rabbit in his hat. Like you see right through it. But Dustin was so good and sharp that even while he's ducking the 3 clothesline, catching the arm, spinning boot, whatever the fucking spot is, nobody could telegraph it and see what was coming. So I just remember being really, really, really impressed watching that. There was one spot that hurt me a little bit as we get into the finish, which I'll let you lead into. But yeah, I thought Dustin is phenomenal. Digging Cody Rhodes, the Rhodes brothers. I hope they do something with the tag belts and Arn. Maybe they end up feuding against Spears and Tully. That would be my guess. But what do you think of the finish and wrapping this match up?
Yeah, I thought the finish was good. There was it did look like Penta hit Cody with his package pile driver. I don't know if you saw that. To me, it looked like Cody may have come down a little hard on the backside of his head there on his shoulders. They pointed out, Cody coming down viciously on his shoulders. That was what I saw there. But yeah, Dustin picks up the victory by hitting the final reckoning on Phoenix for the pin. And then Tony Schiavone comes down to the ring to interview Cody and see if they would agree to MJF's demands. And Arn interrupts and says he and Cody will talk it over, and then we really don't get an answer. Did you have any other final thoughts on that itself?
I did, man. And one of the reasons Hamin brought me on the show is, host, but also kind of teach. So a teaching moment in the match. They were working over Dustin's leg, the Lucha Brothers, right?
Right, during the break.
How did his leg get hurt? Did you happen to see it? I missed it.
It happened during the commercial break when they came back from the break. That's why I forgot about it. When they come back from the break, they're like, oh, they were doing some damage on Dustin's leg. It's been all the Penta on Dustin during the break itself.
So we didn't see it, but we assume he hurt his knee. Now, this is something maybe the Lucha Bros don't know because they're new to the American style. So anybody that's listening here that wants to wrestle or understand wrestling, the heel will always need to cut off the ring. The heel should always be standing between the baby face getting the heat and their partner in which they can make the tag to. So while Dustin was selling, the heels kept kicking him in the back of his leg, which all Dustin could have done is simply fallen forward and made the tag to Cody. So I think the Lucha Brothers could have done a more efficient job. I know they're just learning the rules of American Tag, but I think they could have done a more, a better job standing in front of Dustin before they went to work on the legs, so they weren't in between he and Cody. Then the only unfortunate part of this match, which I liked, the match itself, was that weird miscue. I don't know if you caught it, but it looks like maybe one of the Luchas weren't where they were supposed to be. And then I'm going to get up and demonstrate a little bit for our viewing audience. Dustin was on the cell, kind of like this, rocking, standing straight up. Cody was in his corner 5 feet away. Nobody was nowhere to be found, and Dustin didn't tag. It looked like the spot was he would reach, and then he would get spine buster, double down, work to the tag. But somebody forgot. So Dustin had to stand there with his thumb up his ass for what seemed like an eternity. It might only been 3 seconds, but it seemed forever where you got to make that tag. And that just makes it look bad. It's one of those little holes we talked about that take the fans out of the match. What I always tell wrestlers is to improvise. As a heel, you got to know if it's not time for the tag, you got to pull them out of the way. And as a babyface, if you're ever close enough to the tag and you don't make it, make the tag. Dustin knows his shit, man. Dustin's forgotten more wrestling than I know. But it was a weird spot. It was a weird call. I don't know if you caught that, but
I did
I
not.
caught it.
That's why you're the professional. Yeah, I didn't even catch that. It's interesting.
Go back and watch.
So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't catch it, definitely go back and watch Mr. Silvio here dropping fine nuggets here with his decade knowledge of professional wrestling.
2 decades.
2 decades. Goodness gracious. Go book him, pay him, Chris Silvio. Follow him on Twitter and on Instagram. Book him. So Alex Marvez interviews Lanny Poffo here. Popped me, Lanny Poffo live on air. Hey, I'm trying to contribute here, and then Alex Marvez no sells it and goes right back into the show. But yeah, I thought this was a cool spot. I know you're a big fan of him as well.
I love it, man. Lanny's a good brother. He lives here in Clearwater. We're buddies. I met him at a show in Georgia, like some theme park a while back, and we've kept in touch ever since. We always say we're going to go out for a coffee or something, but for whatever reason, doesn't end up happening. I thought it was cool. The only thing that is a question, and these are the kind of things, Matt, that you and I discuss and Ben Hamin, like some of the logic issues of like coming back to things or not doing things altogether. It was like this Memphis tribute show, but the only thing I personally saw, I started watching at 8:10, and I watched till 10 p.m. So I saw everything but the first 10 minutes. And other than the Lanny segment and that weird commentator at first, who I didn't know was who he was, until it started sinking in, they didn't do anything about Memphis at all or acknowledging any of those guys. Hopefully they did some darks or something after the show, but it was just weird. And I feel like it's something like, if you advertise it like, hey, this is going to be a Memphis tribute or whatever it was supposed to be, we should have had those guys integrated. Kind of like, I don't want to say like WWE because I like them being completely different, but like when they have the Raw special anniversary, they'll do the skits with the old timers and somebody will come out. I understand Ricky Morton was there. Maybe Ricky Morton came out, did something physical. I don't know. It just seems like we got that Lanny bit, and I love Lanny. I'm glad he got it in the payday. But that was it. I don't recall seeing anything else about the Memphis Legends after that. Did you see anything?
No, other than that video that they panned to the live shot of them all being out in the ring. There wasn't really other than that. I think maybe they could have used them in the 6-man with the Jurassic Express versus the Orange Cassidy and Best Friends. I think that would have been a good spot for them. As far as bringing out those legends during more of the, happy comedy up, having kind of fun tag team match,
sure.
Rather than, just kind of bringing them out really only for the live crowd. They really didn't get showcased other than the 5-10 seconds, right. and I'm talking like a replay, how I'd be like, oh, the legends came out earlier tonight, sure. They show it. So it wasn't even really like something that was produced. So it's kind of disappointing in that sense, because there really wasn't any Legends of Wrestling of Memphis. Like it didn't, it just feel like a flyer. Like, you know what I mean? Like they just made a cool flyer, put the Memphis logo on there and tried to sell tickets.
It was, you just got Lanny. Maybe I'm hoping to God, maybe they did a meet and greet before the show. Maybe they did a lot for the live audience.
It's probably live stuff,
which is really cool. But I would have liked to have seen more stuff on TV. I am going to give them props to something, for something. And this is another thing that we've been discussing ad nauseum on the show, the picture-in-picture breaks. I thought tonight, for the first time, they executed them. They executed them tonight the best they ever have before. I don't know if it's perfect yet, but I was happy and I wasn't upset by the way they made any cuts. I thought they did a much better job in the picture-in-picture of this match and those going forward. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. There was some good highlights there with whether it be Hangman Page, you just see him in the audience, whether it be if they were wrestling when they came back, at least Shivani or JR would put over the fact, okay, here's what happened during the break if it was something that was integral to the match.
Yeah.
Or later on with Sammy Guevara once again doing his follow me on Instagram stuff and introducing the next segment through the picture-in-picture to keep your attention as the viewer. They did a really good job tonight utilizing it once more. I thought that they finally got their timings down. So,
it's getting there.
I saw Cody Rhodes on Twitter a couple weeks ago and somebody complained and he seemed genuine. He's genuinely asked the fan back, okay, what can we do? What's your suggestion on how we can fix the timing? So at least they were listening to it,
Yeah.
whether it be from any an open party, and they took that advice and at least tried to make, those adjustments.
And that's why Cody's a good businessman and he's building the fan base that he has. But I'll give them credit. They really, really cleaned that up. What do you think, though, about Arn speaking for Cody? Cody's a great promo. How did you feel about that?
I think you can make the argument that Arn is the coach, right? So he's trying to have his the person he's representative stay focused on wrestling, right? So, I mean, maybe that's where they're going with it, but you're right. I mean, Cody got a good promo. He really doesn't need Arn to speak for him.
Yeah. I love Cody's promos. It just seemed a little, I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent.
Right.
It just seemed a little strange to me. I know they were building a cliffhanger for Arn to tell you, here's what's going to happen later. But maybe a possible suggestion, Cody could have got into doing his heartfelt Cody Rhodes stuff, maybe got a tap on the shoulder from Arn that said, look, I got some stuff in the playbook working. We're not going to give all our secrets away, but trust me, we'll be back soon and you'll know what's going on. So maybe he kind of coached Cody almost like a lawyer, like, no, don't say too much.
Right.
So I think that could have been a little cool. It's all just different tastes, but it did seem a little strange of Arn speaking for him. It worked. I love Arn and the Rhodes. Just a little odd to me. That's all.
So up next, speaking of that whole response, we have MJF. Now he comes out to the ring immediately after this segment. So I thought that was a little weird. Because during this segment itself, they didn't really, why didn't Cody come back out? Now, granted, Tony did try to hide it and say, oh, where is he? Could be back in the training room right now, or he's not even here. But it was immediately followed this segment. So it didn't make much sense that Cody would just come back out and try and, retaliate or get involved in this. But MJF comes out with Wardlow. He starts to cut a promo about giving Cody a 10 count to face him, calls him a little bitch when he doesn't come out. DDP music hit. He comes out. DDP can talk. I'm not going to dog on him, but it was just kind of a weird promo, how he was cutting his promo tonight. He was cutting it into the camera rather than like talking directly at MJF or acknowledging him at first. And I get that. That's what he was going for. That's DDP. But it was just a little weird to see him do it with MJF kind of overshadowing MJF in this segment when it's really about MJF himself, right? Getting him over, trying to elevate him. But DDP comes out, says, if you told him 19 years ago to be in the ring live on TNT, he would have said you were smoking crack. Says the fans have been asking about him if he's coming back for one more match. MJF finally puts a stop to this. He gets into the face. They're going back and forth. MJF calls out the Butcher and Blade and Bunny, says that the average age of DDP's fans are dead. Says he would send him straight to the hospice. And of course, take one of his daughters and make her feel the bang. Gave him two options: either get out of the ring, either kiss my ring and get out of the ring. That's funny. That's double entendre. Or he can, take the beating.
His daughter.
Offer his daughter. Exactly. So, but it basically ends with then QT Marshall coming back out and, breaking it up or trying to break it up. And this is going to set up next week. And Dustin as well. Dustin Rhodes, he comes out. So, which is another interesting thing is Dustin can come out, but Cody can't come out. I don't know. What did you think of this whole thing, dude?
Okay. DDP used a promo full of acronyms. Everything was AEW, DDPY,
right.
MJF, which I found a little strange. And it seemed more like something you would do on like a house show, like a feel-good type of house show promo. But I guess what didn't necessarily resonate with me is that DDP has this close relationship with Cody. And I think it was at All In. He was one of his cornermen with Nick Aldis. And they've made a big production of this and how close he is to the Rhodes family. And DDP came in the ring to confront this man who's doing these terrible things to his nephew, Cody. But he was more upbeat, lighthearted, like he didn't really seem upset at MJF or that he really had any agenda. It's like a lot of the criticisms Kofi Kingston got when he'd have a serious angle and serious chant, and he's coming out smiling, throwing pancakes. He loses the belt. The next week, he's coming out smiling, throwing pancakes. So that was a little bit weird to me. I would have liked to see DDP, who is a great promo, cut a more heartfelt promo. He could have got DDPY over, got his
Right.
plug in, and then said, look, bitch, you did this to my nephew. You did this to my friend. That's not how stuff's going to roll. And everybody's been asking, one more match, one more match. Well, you know what? I think this old dog might got some gas left in the tank. And unluckily for you, that first match might be against. Then here's when MJF cuts him off. Oh, brother, I wasn't talking about that. And then he calls out the Bunny and Blade, Blade and Butcher and Bunny. And what kind of confused me on that is what allegiance do they have to MJW? Like, what's this to MJF? What's the story with that? Why would they come out at his beck and call, and why would they have been ready? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, they did when they initially debuted. The following week, it was revealed, and this actually they did mention this on Dynamite, that MJF hired them. So he's the one that's hired the Blade and the Butcher. So that as well as he's hired Wardlow, essentially, like all these people that he's surrounding them with. This is all he's quote unquote paying them, right?
Got it. I'm cool with that.
But go ahead.
Yeah. So then I'm cool with that. DDP busts out a couple diamond cutters, which is what everyone came to see. Ford looked great on him, 2 awesome diamond cutters. He goes to get MJF, to get Wardlow, I think. And then that's when the low blow happens and Paige goes down in the cell. And then, as you mentioned, the refs run out and Dustin Rhodes run out. And again, you were right, man. It was kind of weird that there was no Cody present. I think what they're trying to do is they don't want them close enough to touch, which, let's go back to a wrestling lesson. That's rule number 1 in a feud like that, is you want to keep both of these parties away from each other as much as possible. So the longer you do that, the more anticipation builds for them to finally meet together. So I think that's why they didn't have Cody out there. It was a little bit odd as far as like continuity, but that would be my guess as to why they didn't have him out there, so he wouldn't have to get physical.
It was only weird just because it happened right after. Like if they had put something between it and then Dustin comes out, okay, Cody's not here, that's fine. But if Dustin hadn't come out, it would have made more sense. Like I would have been like, okay, that makes sense too. QT Marshall just came out, blah blah blah. But like for them to do it immediately right after, and I think the argument could be made. You could have still had Cody come out. He's trying to get his hands on MJF without actually accepting it, right? He's finally trying to get his hands, but doesn't, right? I mean, MJF scurries out of the ring. So you could have still done something by keeping them apart.
I like that. And MJF could hop the guardrail with the mic, and he could still be saying, hey, remember, if you ever want a shot with me, you're not going to be able to touch me. Come on, Rhodes, why don't you hit me? Why don't you hit me? As he's being a bitch and backing away even further into the crowd. That's what a heel does. A heel lies. So, yeah, man, that would have been a good idea. I would have liked to have seen that.
So after that, we get the Jurassic Express taking on the Best Friends and Orange Cassidy. I don't know. I this kind of just, I wouldn't say bored me, but I just wasn't really like into this match. But that ends up the conclusion of the match as it breaks down. Trent hit a spear on Jungle Boy. Cassidy hit a top rope elbow. We see a double stomp, a DDT on, and then another destroyer itself. Luchasaurus threw Stunt onto Cassidy and Trent, and then Taylor went for a power bomb. But Jungle Boy turned it into a victory roll for the pin. So another pin, roll up pin. And this was technically this was technically Marko Stunt's first win, wasn't it? Or no, it was Jungle Boy's first pin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Jungle Boy picking up his first AEW victory. So I mean, that was cool. But I don't know. This was just a match that was placed on the card. Like I thought this maybe should have been placed between the last segment, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not a bad assessment. So yeah, let's talk about that. And I teased last week that I wanted to give Marko Stunt some Big Brother advice from a wrestler who wasn't that big in stature, that got bigger and made it a long way in this industry. So let's talk about Marko Stunt for a minute. I like the package. I like the presentation of Jurassic Express. I don't know why, but I do. It's cutesy. It's, it's entertaining. I don't mind them being out there. As you know, Marko Stunt is getting a lot of criticism from a lot of people for his size, the fact that he looks like a child. So Mark, I want this. Who's our video guy? You mentioned it earlier.
El Plaja.
Yeah. Okay. So brother, clip this part out. I'm speaking right now from Chris Silvio to Marko Stunt. I wrestled a lot in the area that Marko came up in, and I heard his name. Marko, to get rid of those naysayers and detractors, all you're going to need to do is put in some work, and I'm going to explain why. You're short and you're skinny. That's what the cards you've been given. So now you got to roll with them. But now you're also a pro wrestler. So now you have to start morphing that you being the little guy got you over and doing cool moves. But now you need to shut up the naysayers. It shows to me right now that you probably don't go to the gym. And if you do, it's not very often. You're not eating a high protein diet or a high carbohydrate diet or anything that's going to pack on pounds. So Marko, what I would say to you, man, you're in a good position at a young age, is it's time to really take training seriously. You can go in the ring. You've been doing a great job. I think the kid's only been wrestling a few years, but we gotta build that body. You're never going to be 6'10", no problem with that. But we have to get some muscle mass on you. You really need to start thinking like a professional now. Get in the weight room, get a nutritionist, get that up. So those people that are saying, "Oh, that Marko Stunt kid couldn't beat a fly," Conor McGregor is a small man. Floyd Mayweather is a small man, but they can still kick your ass. A wrestler of any size, and this is coming from the junior heavyweight to you, someone way smaller than even I am, you always have to present yourself like a big man. You should always wrestle big. I always wrestle like I'm Bruiser Brody, coming forward, all hard and things like that. So that's going to be my advice to young Marko Stunt, is start taking the business seriously, man. It's your career. You got a good opportunity to make some money for your family, put money in the bank. Let's get you looking a little bit better and stronger. Your body is actually going to hold up and give you more longevity as a result. The stronger you are, the easier your matches are, the more healthy you are, the better your body feels. So from one big brother to a little brother, Marko Stunt, I highly recommend doing that. If you ever need advice from me, I'm around your area all the time. I'll do seminars. Just give me a call, text me, and I'll be happy to give you my feedback on that. So that's my Marko Stunt advice I've been wanting to dish out here, because I like to see smaller guys get ahead, man. When I started, I was one of the smallest guys at OVW, and I ended up at the tippy top being their heavyweight champion. But it was a progression that took a lot of work to get there, and I'd like to see that same progression with Marko Stunt.
Yeah, and as we mentioned at the top of the show, it's a brand new year, Marko Stunt. And if you want to get in shape, you can go to StevieRichardsFitness.com, sign up and get a pair of resistance bands, $20, $25, different programs. It's pretty cheap, dude. You can do it on the road or your hotels. Super simple. You can hit up Silvio, and he can help you bulk up, give you some tips, tricks, some protein shake, drink mixes, what you need to eat, what you need to pack on, what's going to hurt, what's going to help. Hit us up. We're here to help you, sir. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry. Do you want to talk about the match itself?
So let's talk about the match. Great athletic sequence with Jack Perry. Jungle Boy is getting better every week. He's one of those guys that's learning on the job, and not a lot of people can do that. I was very impressed with him and have been for quite some time now. Got a real nice offensive sequence at the beginning with Chucky T. When Marko got in the match, I think it was close to his hometown. They were out for him. They wanted to see Marko, and I like the way that.
Is that why they were in Mississippi tonight for Marko Stunt?
I guess so. I think his hometown is somewhere close to that.
Okay.
That's why they were so hot for him. I think Trent did a real good job of working Marko's size with them. Like, guys shouldn't be just flying around and bumping around for Marko for no reason. You got to be smart enough to do it in a sensible fashion. So he kept doing the thing where he'd try to lunge at Trent, do the diving headlocks and shit, and Trent would just shove him off. Marko's only offense there, he's got to fly. So then he takes to that big run, and that's how he gets his shit in. So that was cool. I really like the way that Trent made that work. Marko did his little dance after he shined up for a little bit, ran out, tagged Jungle Jack Perry, and the match was on from there.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that was just interesting was this is technically the main event. So, as far as all the matches that we've seen throughout the evening, this was the last match we had for AEW for the night. What did you think as far as the placement of this match, really with no meaning, just kind of being on the card as the last, wrestling match to end the show itself?
I would have ended with Cody and the Lucha Brothers.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a little bit odd. And again, we talked about this last week and the week before with the tags. Now, it's hard in a babyface match to get a really hot tag. But how it was taught to me, and I'm now going to teach it to you. In every match, somebody will, if it's two baby faces, somebody will need to be what's called the situational heel. So that doesn't mean all of a sudden you're going to turn into the bad guy and start telling the audience to fuck off and ripping people's signs up. But you have to be the aggressor. So one of those teams, in this case, it should have been Trent and Chucky T. They should have done something questionable, like maybe it was a questionable low blow to Jack Perry or a questionable punch where the referee's kind of like, hey, did you mean to cheat? And the guys are like, oh, no, it just happened, or it's wrestling, shit happens. And then they kind of could have had like that subtle little way, to get the heat on them and then work them over and build to that tag. The tag to Luchasaurus was kind of cold, meaning the crowd didn't erupt when the tag was made.
Right.
And if you build a tag team match right, that hot tag means everything. It's just as important as the biggest move of the comeback in a singles match. AEW has had some difficulty with those tags, and this was a perfect example. I like what he did once he got tagged in, but yeah, just it had that another weird cold tag.
Yeah, I would even started AEW with this match and put the Kenny Omega and Hangman Page versus the Private Party in this place, in my opinion, just because I think there was something more with that. Speaking of Pac and coming out of that match, I did like the fact that they announced some stuff for next week. They've got Pac taking on Darby Allin. I think that'll be a good match, as well as Statlander and Sheeta taking on Awesome Kong and Mel. And then, so that's what they're calling her. They're calling her Mel, not her whole name. They're just calling her Mel. And then Butcher, Blade, and MJF versus QT Marshall, Dustin Rhodes, and the returning DDP. So DDP in 2020 will be in a wrestling ring in action. So that gives him the 90s, the early 2000s, the 2010s. That'll be 4 decades. Over the course of 4 decades, we've seen DDP in a ring. So that'll be cool to see. As well as Dustin Rhodes, of course. He's been there.
And I think DDP managed he was on AWA as a commentator and maybe manager.
Right.
That might be yet another decade for DDP.
Yeah.
But yeah, bookending this, Orange Cassidy makes me laugh. Like, I'm not 100% sold on everything he does yet, but the crowd seems to like it.
I just had an idea. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I had an idea I wanted to bring up too. We talked about it yesterday. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not really sold all the way on Orange Cassidy, but he makes me laugh. I thought it was a pretty fun little spot when he did the fall off the top rope, and then somebody else came in and did something else off the top. But what was your idea?
So it wasn't my idea. I can't take 100% credit for this, but it was a discussion we had on the Impact Attack where we were all talking about Tennille Dashwood. Right. And it kind of got on to the fact that when Tennille Dashwood is in the ring, she's very emotionless. Like, she doesn't look like she's happy to be there. And we were thinking, well, if, Ben brought up, he brought, of course, the full circle. If she's not happy to be there, rather than turn her up, let's turn her down. And we all kind of came up with the conclusion, why don't we make her the female version of Orange Cassidy? Because Orange Cassidy's gimmick is only going to go so far, right? There's only so many things you can do. So if you introduce this love interest with Tennille Dashwood, is that something that you think maybe might be viable for Orange Cassidy maybe more long term? Because, do you feel that his gimmick is only going to go as far as it can?
Yeah, I think so. There's only but so many times he's going to be able to put his hands in his pockets and shin kick people. He's doing an act, and every act gets stale. Just imagine if Guns N' Roses played Appetite for Destruction at every concert that they did from 1988 till today. So I don't care how good the act is. Cassidy is either going to have to find ways to evolve it, change it up a little bit. But yeah, I could see a love interest in there. Tennille Dashwood working all right. I don't have a problem with that. I thought it was a fun match overall. A few weird things, which was kind of the theme of the night, but it was a fun watch. I think maybe Cody and Dustin in the main could have carried it a little bit better, but yeah, it wasn't bad. Fun match.
So they also advertised next week Chris Jericho, Santana, and Ortiz will be taking on the Jurassic Express. I'm sorry, that's for Dynamite in 2 weeks, not next week. But it looks like here, I believe it, at least what they're showcasing, is it Bash at the Beaches next week?
That's what I was going to ask you, bro. I didn't understand that. Like, I know Cody had reserved the rights to Bash at the Beach. Like, I couldn't tell if it was a special event or if it was just going to be Dynamite, but they're referring to it as Bash at the Beach. I'm not really sure on it, and I can't remember what the date said. But
So I know that it is definitely a Dynamite show. Like it's a Dynamite show. It's a special Bash at the Beach. Like AEW presents Dynamite Bash at the Beach or whatever.
Gotcha.
Now the thing I don't mind about it too, and I brought this up when they first announced that they were going to do this show, was it's next week. AEW Bash at the Beach, January 15th. I believe that weekend is Chris Jericho's Rock and Rager, and it starts in Miami or wherever they're going to be next week. So like it kind of ties in. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's kind of cool. But yeah, they've got Bash at the Beach happening next week. So that's kind of the big thing that we'll see what they do with the set. It'll be cool to see if they do anything unique or anything like that. I'd like to see sand, bring sand into the arena. That's something that, I always bothered me about Bash at the Beach. And WCW did it a couple times. It's on a beach. Make it look like a beach. Bash at the beach. Anyway,
that's one of the things I like about AEW is that they film in different locations and doesn't look like the same. So if they have kind of a cool set with that, I'm looking forward to see what they do. One thing that struck me a little bit odd there was, so remember DDP was doing that promo and he said, people are asking for one more match, but then they ended up going elsewhere and not addressing it. And then the next thing I heard without any explanation, it's like, oh, and DDP is going to be in the 6-man. Like, was there any point in time where he said he was coming back? Like, was there any continuity in that at all? It just seems like it came out of absolutely nowhere. He talked and 10 minutes later, he was in a cold 6-man tag. Did I miss something?
I mean, it basically just from the breakdown, with QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes making the save, that was really the setup. That's all that was really done. But they didn't really make a challenge or throw down a gauntlet or anything like that. It was just announced.
Yeah, because, you got to do they do a lot of stuff wrong. And they do a lot of stuff right. And I know Cody knows better, but you would think the return of a legend like DDP is something that you promote, and you probably start promoting it before the week that it's going to happen. Like that should have been something where Paige is doing promos for weeks saying, hey, the old dog got one fight left in him. Who's it going to be? And then we make it an issue. And then maybe that's the reason why he's now in the 6-man. And that's the match that he chose to make his comeback match. But it just felt like it was really rushed. It was like they tried to do one big angle all in the span of 16 minutes, and it just kind of lost me a little bit.
Yeah, that's really the only thing that happened with DDP was during that segment, the breakdown, him hitting the cutters on everybody. And then after, getting attacked by the Blade and the Butcher, if you will. And then that set up QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes. That's what set up the match.
And who are they fighting? Blade, Butcher, and Bunny?
Blade, Butcher, and MJF are taking on DDP, Dustin, and QT Marshall. So after this, then I like this. This is one of my highlights as far as during the cut segment break. You had Guevara sitting in the ring, and he was coming up next. Jon Moxley makes the most highly anticipated announcement since Elvis Presley. He went through all these different since Mr. Burns, who shot Mr. Burns. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of funny. Mox comes out after Jericho cuts he introduces Moxley as his friend, his protege. Jericho says it's an important day in Memphis, not in Elvis's birthday. He said Elvis was a jackass. The Beatles are better. If Elvis were here, he'd kick his ass. Jericho said the GT is gassed up. The party is ready, and they're just waiting for Moss to accept. Moxley comes out, says he can't be, no one knows his motivations. He can't be bought. Makes it, does the early turn on that he's going to say no to him, but then it says, that's why I'm joining the Inner Circle. So they start partying, they're getting drunk. They're having a good time. Mox eventually says, give me the keys to the car. He gives him the keys to the car, crowds at this point chanting, you sold out, you sold out. I'm sitting here thinking that, though, at the way they're actually kind of pulling the time out to end the show, I'm like, oh wow, Mox actually flipped. He's joining the Inner Circle. Okay, this will be cool. Eventually, that Mox is going to turn on him, but all right, this will be interesting where they're going to lead to it. And now I'm actually believing it. They caught me. I'm like, okay, Mox joined the Inner Circle, and then finally in that last 2 minutes, old school wrestling, traditional booking comes back. Mox says no. After finally getting rid of the rest of the Inner Circle in the ring, it made sense. I get it. He had to make his move. He wanted to wait for Sammy Guevara and Jake Hager to get out of the ring. And once he gets out of the ring, then he finally attacks Jericho. So Mox does not join the Inner Circle. I pitched this to Alicia. We were texting back and forth, and I was like, it would have been cool if Mox, being the lunatic guy that he is, if he had systematically took out the Inner Circle. So he joins the Inner Circle, and then bad stuff starts happening to them, to the Inner Circle, whether they're being attacked backstage, maybe a flight gets missed, something wacky happens, but just eventually it ends up to them leading to where it's just Mox and Jericho, and then he makes his move, right? I thought that would have been something cool to add to this Jericho Mox feud. Instead, they decided to go ahead and give it to us all in the last 10 minutes.
So it'd be kind of like he's a mole inside the Inner Circle.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that would have been kind of cool to do.
So this segment, any promo Jericho does is great. I'm going to be into it. I'm going to be watching
Of course.
I think they gave them just a little bit too long on this segment. And the whole vibe, just like you for a moment, I'm like, really? Are they actually going to have Moxley join this group?
Right.
But the whole time I'm waiting for Moxley to kick somebody and DDT them. So the whole time I'm just thinking, okay, when is this coming? When is this coming? And they kept stretching it out and stretching it out. They hugged a bunch of times, and they did like a second round of champagne. I'm not sure why. Maybe they thought they had less time than they did, and they got something in the earpiece that told them. But it was not a clean spot at all. Like it dragged and seemed like people were kind of not getting into it. And then, yay, when he hit him, I think it could have a lot more impact if the business would have done a lot faster. Let's say he just unzips it, he shows the shirt, and he says, hey, I'm in, and I'm in it for life. Let me get those car keys, baby. Jericho hands him the keys. He hugs everyone. The other two heels fuck off. Moxley grabs the bottle, bang on Jericho's head. The two run in to check on Jericho. Moxley's run off through the crowd. Fuck you, dangling the car keys. You could have got that business done in 2 to 5 minutes. And it wouldn't have dragged, and it would have been beautiful.
Even to that point, they could have followed Mox out, and he could have gotten the car. That's how they could have stretched that time out, right? Mox is leaving, and he's getting in the car. He's actually
fucking
taking
Sammy
it.
chasing him.
Right.
Quick, that'd be great. Swagger holding on to the bumper, that's that cool Nitro shit, But that was the theme of tonight, man. Is that AEW Dynamite sometimes reminds me of Nitro in very positive ways. I was a huge fan of Nitro, and they did a lot of cool stuff. But I also see some of the not so good stuff that Nitro does in AEW. And that's kind of like an example of that. They try to do all these come out of nowhere things, whether it's the finish out of nowhere or this heel group coming out of nowhere. They're trying to get that spontaneous, you never know what's going to happen on our show vibe, which I dig. But I think this week it came out as weird. It didn't come out as this unpredictable, exciting show. I think it left you more saying, with more questions, like, what did I just see and what's happening?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the ending of this show, from just a timing standpoint, they gave them a lot of time, because I think they came back from the break and it was like 6:46 Pacific time, my time. So that would have been 9:46 Eastern. So they had, good 13, 14 minutes there to end the show. So, this might have, been that spot for that Rhodes and Lucha Brothers match, or the Kenny Omega and Private Party 15-20 minute match they had at the beginning of the show that could have taken up that time, rather than, giving them so much time and then teasing, is the turn going to come? Is the turn going to come? Mox, I don't know if I saw this. Mox went and picked up one of the prop bottles and it popped in his hand. So he had to grab another one before breaking it over the head of Jericho. That was pointed out to me as well. I had to go back and watch that before we started. But yeah, overall, I mean, I liked Dynamite. There was some highs, there was some lows. I didn't watch NXT. You know, I know you watch NXT, right? That's something that you do keep up with. As far as the comparison between the two shows, what do you think? Is AEW winning, or is NXT winning from just a viewership standpoint, from you as a viewer?
Um, NXT is the superior wrestling show, bell to bell. AEW is the more complete package. AEW is the circus. It has a little bit of everything. The production looks good. So I would say, like, if you just want to watch for pure quality of matches, NXT would get the nod. But if you want a spectacle and more of a show, I think AEW is leaps and bounds ahead.
Okay,
In my humble opinion.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I mean, AEW, if you're looking to hire anybody, you can hire Chris Silvio. You can, contact him. Not only can you hire Chris Silvio, you can hire Stevie Richards. You can hire Ben Hamin. You can hire Vince Russo. You can hire PJ Polanco, Shane Douglas, Disco Inferno. We're all connected here between Hamin Media and Russo brand. Yeah, everyone's here. Jesus, we're all connected by 1 degree of separation with all great minds. And you're getting all or most of this content for free right here on HackerHamin.podbean.com. Mr. Silvio, where can all the weirdos, beardos, and people who like Honey Nut Cheerios reach out to you?
Hey, before I give that info,
okay.
I have a little hot takes from this week.
Hot take. Go ahead. Yeah, for sure. Take over, sir.
So I got fired up yesterday. I saw some, I don't want to use the word goofs, but some, let's just say, goof-like behavior, contending that this is just random people or bitter indie vets, whatever you want to call them. There's this big thread I saw on social media about how the cruiserweights are killing the business, how the wrestlers that are 175 and under are the reason, somebody actually said, are the reason that wrestling lost its credibility. Part of this thread, you saw a picture of Adam Cole, and somebody was like, in my day, he would have been a manager at best. Adam Cole has made way more money in the last year than this person who's a supposed veteran has probably made ever in their career. So that was just one of the dumbest things I've heard. And it was a big thread going on about small guys in wrestling. Small guys in wrestling aren't ruining anything. They're not responsible. When the business was in the toilet in the 90s, it wasn't due to small guys. They were still using these giant guys. If anything, small guys helped the wrestling business. The cruiserweights helped WCW get on the map. That faster paced style that used to be called the Ring of Honor style is now what we see on NXT, a version of what we see on WWE TV, what we see on AEW. The smaller competitors have made it a faster paced, more exciting, more physical style. So yeah, to any of those detractors that were trying to say the small guys are ruining it, you don't know shit about shit. They're doing a great job, and they're carrying the ball. Another hot take that I was fired up about that, but another hot take this week is there's been some more allegations coming out about pro wrestlers doing some sexual.
Oh, you want to talk about the Roy Gulak stuff?
I got a couple of them. Yeah,
okay.
One was Roy Gulak that evidently had some kind of bestiality or child porn fetish. I know they're doing some kind of investigation into that. What do you know right now?
So I've contacted a couple different people, and I've got it on a really good, reliable source from Big Ray, who's got a really good, reliable source, which I can tell you when we stop recording, and you would know him right away. And if people who listen to the show know who his Ray's source is, has said that Rory Gulak's going to need to get a lawyer. So apparently there is something to this story. The text messages that broke online, Big Ray also sent me over the thread. The person that he was talking to was a sex worker. Ben Hamin had a take on this as well. So you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, right? Because she's also a sex worker as well.
Right.
If you read the text messages based on who he's talking to, they're very grotesque for sure, but they're not they're not anything that's illegal. It's just really disgusting, dirty talk he's having.
Right.
So I can't comment. I haven't really seen anything, but if what this individual is saying that this person needs to get a lawyer, there might be really something more to it.
Right. And I saw several women have shared the Twitter or tweet exchanges with them. And those, the ones that I saw, They were very sexual,
Right.
and he seems pretty pervy.
Yeah.
But like you said, I didn't see anything that was illegal in those, but some of them were absolutely questionable. Like I even saw one woman just share a bunch of stuff that didn't even reference any of the stuff we're talking about. But you could, and it seems like she just wanted to be a part of the movement and share. Like, she's like, yeah, I used to sex with him, but like nothing even bad came of it. What I did see from the alleged notes under his screen name that had his little picture and everything, he did mention something about an animal and banging someone in front of their child. Like, what if the kid walked in? So that's kind of muddy in those waters. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not sure what's legal and what isn't. I think like sexting, he's probably going to be okay with that. But if there is some kind of child porn involved in this or bestiality porn, that's fucked. He should innocent until proven guilty. But
Right.
yeah, if he's doing things like that and getting caught with child porn, then lock him up, throw away the key. There's no talking your way out of that. It's not a good situation to be in.
Yeah, a lot of weird stuff going on in pro wrestling, man. A lot of
Yeah.
weird people back there behind the curtain, huh?
And then we had another one this week. A guy that I've known he used to produce a YouTube show that I had. A lot of stuff and this is hard to talk about because it's somebody that I've known for a long time, and like we're not the best of friends, but and I hate to even say it, but it's coming out. There's an indie worker by the name of Jason Saint, who is a manager in the Indiana area. He used to help out at OVW. That's how I met him. I used to have a YouTube show. He produced the show for me.
Wow.
Always seemed like a great, genuine dude. Some stuff came out about a teenager evidently coming forward about him using manipulative behavior on her when she was like 15 to 16. There's still stuff coming out on this, but the allegations are that he was kind of under the guise of mentoring young teen female wrestlers, that he was having inappropriate Snapchat relationships with them, allegedly sending dick pics and stuff like that. He released a statement on his Twitter and since has deleted the statement. But that's somebody that I knew personally for a really
Wow.
long time.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, and it's that I don't want to use the word if it's true because I don't want to call these women liars. It's not what I'm saying at all. But as knowing him for as long as I have, a big part of me hopes it isn't true. But the signs don't look good, and where there's smoke, there's fire. So, I mean, just in a week alone, we've had those. When I was in England a couple of years back, the same thing happened. There was just this huge movement where all these women started speaking out about English wrestlers that, were hitting on underage girls, having sex with underage girls, just doing all kinds of shady stuff. And I think about like 16 people got wrapped up in that. A lot of their careers came to an end. So I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing a lot more stuff like that. These boys better watch what the fuck they're doing, man. And any wrestler out there or anybody just listening, there is no reason, bros, there is no reason to communicate with a teenager online. If they comment on your post and you want to say thank you, fine. But there should be no DMing of any kind. Nothing like that. And some of these allegations are coming across against fellow female workers. So I have the Jason Saint story. A few months prior to that, someone in the same area had a huge controversy because he was reaching out to female wrestlers in an inappropriate manner. It is never appropriate. Wrestlers, listen, or just anyone. It's never appropriate to go into work and start trying to uninvited have romantic or sexual relationships or encounters with people.
Right.
You'll know it. It's organic. If somebody has attraction to you, you feel it with them, it will happen organically. And if there's any question to it, ask. Don't just come out sending a dick pic or saying something stupid or fucking crazy. Come out as a man or woman and just say, hey, I find you attractive or whatever. Is it cool if we talk? Then right then and there. But there's just a lot of this stuff coming out with people doing shady shit with teenagers and harassing the female wrestlers. I've seen that happen. I've seen many female wrestlers get hassled, and it fucking pisses me off. You treat everybody on the roster is treated the exact same way. The girls become one of the boys. There's never an excuse for you to treat them any differently, hit on them, harass them. And if anyone's doing that, you're shitty. You need to readjust your priorities because you're a piece of shit. Leave the girls the fuck alone. They're there to do a job the same way you are. If you happen to organically fall into a relationship with somebody, cool. That's all fine and dandy because it's wrestling and that's what happens. We get with each other. But stop with the creepy shit, guys. It's fucking stop.
Life lessons, love lessons, wrestling lessons here, ladies and gentlemen, with Mr. Silvio. You can get it all.
We get it all. But yeah, hit me up, man. I'm at the Chris Silvio on Twitter. I'm at the Chris Silvio on Instagram. Follow my YouTube, my Facebook, Chris Silvio, as well as Chris Silvio's Superstar Seminars page on Facebook. I do remote seminars where you can plug in from anywhere around the world. And I also do live seminars all over the world. Coming to your house, do a camp seminar, get your wrestlers on the path to success any way I can. And if you do want to view the replay of the webinar last night between myself and Matt Seidel, that's going to be available for the next 2 weeks on demand. So you can watch it anytime you want. And I'm Chris Silvio. I'm fired up. And that was AEW Dynamite.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we jump over to MLW, just want to remind you, of course, you can go to getacre.com/horsemen. You can also check them out on Twitter at @get_acre. Tell them that Hamin Media Group sent you there. They're giving away a free gold bar. They've already given away to one of our viewers and listeners. They got a free gold bar who made a great reference about Star Wars and the Mandalorian. He was like, I need the gold bar to make a brand new outfit for my Mandalorian gear. So if you want to get yourself a gold bar, you want to support our sponsor, go over on Twitter, let them know the Hamin Media Group sent you there. Ben Hamin Group sent you there. Check out StevieRichardsFitness.com. Check out RussoBrand.com.